Hello and welcome to the setup for our next Dominion 6 series where we shall play as middle-aged Nidavangr. I just want to say thank you to everybody who watched the tutorial series and for all of your fantastic comments. Having a little think over them, a lot of you asked for a nation more centred around magic and blesses, so I thought something like Nidavangr would be right up that alley. They're one of the new nations in Dominion 6, so it'll be interesting to see how they play. I've done a little bit of testing on them so far, but I'm far from an expert on them, so let's learn together. So to give you a brief overview of the nation, it appears that we are barbarians settling in the previously Jotun lands, similar in a way to Maverni or Ulm's troops of the early age. We have a lot of undisciplined troops, as well as some sneaky raiders and berserkers. Looking at our infantry stats, it appears that we have even more HP than middle-aged Ulm on some of our units. Our sacreds are the Nid-bathed, so called because they bathe in the blood of their friends and are born into an unnatural being with multiple lives, thanks to their soul scars. If they are slain by anything other than drowning, being petrified or disintegrated, then instead they will lose one of their soul scars and keep on fighting. They're pretty good troops, they have pretty good morale, attack skill and damage on their weapon, and so I think they'll be quite effective sacreds. The number of the soul scars they get is equal to half the Dominion score in the province they recruited, rounded up. As for our commanders, we have weak priests, but we have pretty good selection of mages with pretty good path diversity, and quite a lot of sorcery access from our Crow clan, as well as a little bit of blood magic as well. A lot of our troops and some of our commanders can also be recruited outside of forts, giving us a lot of foreign recruitment, which will be an interesting change of pace in comparison to Middle Age Ulm. We also have scrying inside our dominion, so we get accurate reports on provinces and militaries within our dominion, which is quite nice. So, let's create our game. We'll make a new game with a medium number of provinces and a map type of small lakes. We don't want those underwater nations getting off scot-free. We'll also do a single cave, because I like it when it connects together, and we'll keep on rivers and east to west wraparound. We'll enter our name, we'll select the Middle Ages, and we'll also select the nation of Nidavangr. As for our opponents, we'll have 5 AI nations, and we'll set them all to mighty AI. This sounds good, and it will hopefully be more of a challenge than our previous game. Let's move on to our pretender. Now, as for our pretender, I was having a little think about using another Awake Expander, specifically the Son of Fenrir. I always have a bit of a soft spot for the Son of Fenrir, from all my times playing in Dominions. After all, who doesn't like a cute little doggo? His paths are pretty good. Water and nature gives us easy access to things like quickness and barkskin and regeneration for himself, and we could even take that as a bless if we wanted for our sacreds. Looking at our nation, however, I think we actually have the magical paths that we can cast those fairly easily ourselves, so let's get some blesses for other things we can't easily get. So for that, I've made a pretender specifically for this. Let's load him up. And here he is, the pretender we're going to use for this series, Bone Meal Bathwater. He has 6 death, 5 astral, and 4 in nature, fire, glamour and blood, as well as 3 in earth. For his bless, we have a good selection of fairly good blesses if cheap: Righteous Wrath, magic weapons, 3 times Undying, Blur, Enchanted Blood, and Blood Surge. When it comes to our sacred soul scars, each time one of our Nid-bathed use a soul scar, it counts as them dying for the purposes of Righteous Wrath. So it's actually beneficial for us to take it here to buff up our nearby sacreds. The 3 times Undying also lets them take more damage before using their soul scars, and should they be at this negative HP at the end of the battle, the Enchanted Blood Bless will bring them above 0 hit points before it is over, so we won't use a soul scar. On top of that, we have Blood Surge, that when they eventually kill something, then they'll get even more attack and strength, so hopefully these guys will be absolute juggernauts. And finally, we've chosen magic weapons so that our sacreds can be more useful in the later game when we start coming up against more magical armies with mist form. If we come up any ethereal units, etc., they'll still be able to be used within the game. As for our scales, we have 7 in Dominion, 1 in Order, 2 in Sloth, 3 in Cold, 1 in Growth, nothing in Luck or Misfortune, and 1 in Magic. The Order in the Growth is for developing probably a small blood slave harvesting operation, and also getting the recruitment points for our Recruit Anywhere troops will also be quite nice. As for Sloth 2, we don't need that many resources for our troops, and we can shore it up by recruiting from multiple different provinces rather than having central recruiting locations. The extra point of Cold 3 is just so we have a bit of an additional designer point so we could get our Bless. And Magic 1 is really good because our mages are recruit anywhere. They don't require a fort, they just require a lab. So this will really help us in getting additional research done. We are also imprisoned. I know I kept rallying against it in my pretended design video, but I think the extra design points for a better Bless will help our sacreds a lot. The downside is obviously magic weapons is incarnate, so we will have to wait for our god to be awake before we can start to use that on our sacreds. But hopefully this shouldn't affect us too much, however. Our Nid Bathed will be used probably in our first war, maybe sort of late expansion parties, if everything goes to plan. And I'm hoping that we don't run into any ethereal units too early into the game. But if we do, we have a good mage core on this nation in order to combat them. So, let's go through. I'm happy with this pretender. And here we are, Bone Meal Bathwater. All praise Bone Meal Bathwater. As for our settings, we're going to allow renaming, and should any of our commanders do anything particular noteworthy, maybe we can get people's names put into the game. That sounds like it would be good fun. Let's go into the throne settings, and I'll change around some of the throne settings and get back to you. So, in this game we're going to have 8 level 1 thrones, 4 level 2 thrones, and 2 level 3 thrones. In order to win, we'll set it so you have to have 14 ascension points, just to stop someone bum rushing all of the thrones. We won't enable Cataclysm so we can get a better idea of the nation without time limit, and with that we're all good to go. I think we'll leave the rest of the default settings as normal, and with that, let's start our first game as Nidavangr. And with that we have our first turn as Nidavangr. Hopefully this will be the start of another great series, and I hope you guys will all enjoy it. But I think that's all we'll do for this setup episode, so everybody remember to praise Bone Meal Bathwater, and until next time, take care.